Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is Tyler Brass. I'm an intuitive astrologer and I'm here to present to you the astrology of 2024, all the major shifts in the year to come. And I've also created a really cool calendar that you can refer to throughout the year. It's really helpful to plan for these shifts and to take a look at each zodiac season or the month, whichever your perspective you prefer is. And it also makes a really great gift for an intuitive friend. So we're going to start with winter, okay? So winter 2024, we're going to do it season by season. As we start 2024, we start in a major way, okay? Mercury ends its retrograde on January 1st, New Year's, which is just such a great way to start a fresh new year, a calendar year, right? Mercury is our planet of motion. And so when it's moving forward, when it's stationing to move forward again, we're going to also feel intuitively this call to start moving forward with our lives. Like we can start trying things on again. Like we can start meeting new people, messing around with new ideas. And not only that, Mercury retrograde ending on the 1st comes right after Jupiter retrograde ends. I believe it's the 31st, if not the 30th of December. And so these two happening simultaneously are really going to catapult us into 2024. Feeling like there's all this new interest brewing and there's new people and experiences to show for that excitement as well, okay? Now, any astrologer will tell you the stationing period of a planet switching from retrograde to forward motion kind of feels like this process of you're changing gears in the car. The retrograde is like when you're reversing, and then when a planet is moving forward, it's like you're switching that gear back into drive mode, right? And you're ready to head forward again. And so that process is kind of like switching your perspective around intuitively. And so note what that feels like around that time and every Mercury retrograde as we move through the year, because there's always a handful each year. Mercury moves so fast, and so it has to slow down more often than other planets to have and maintain that balance that it needs, right? So really exciting start to 2024. Not only that happens in January, but Pluto moves into Aquarius again on the 20th, as the sun also moves into Aquarius. So what do we have here? We have two events happening simultaneously. The sun is shifting signs from Capricorn into Aquarius on January 20th. And as it does so, it's going to conjunct Pluto because Pluto has been on the cusp of Capricorn Aquarius. And so the sun is in that area too. Now, since Pluto is moving into Aquarius on this date, and the sun is also moving into 0 degrees Aquarius on this date, it's going to feel very strange. Aquarius has all the weird vibes, connotations to it, but really it feels strange because it's unfamiliar, and that is just because it's a sign or an energy of the future. And so that's why you're like, ooh, we're not in Kansas anymore, kind of a vibe. And we've been going through that. Pluto has been dancing on this cusp now, all of 2023 and some of 2022 as well. And so we're going to see in 2024 that Pluto wraps up its time in Capricorn for 200 plus years to come. So this is a major point of focus that we're going to come back to throughout this forecast, okay? So take into consideration that winter time, while it may feel like, oh, we have a new year to start, we have all these new themes, we have this new motivation, Mercury's shifting, Jupiter's shifting, it's still winter, which means it's still intuitively the end of a cycle. And so don't try to plan for everything new in winter time. You know, Aquarius, Pisces season, these are seasons for ending, for letting go. These are the most mature signs and energies of the zodiac because they come last, right? So they take all the wisdom of the signs before them and they kind of, you know, collectivize it. And so this is my kind of word of caution is like winter may feel exciting in some ways, but it's still a time of ending things. Okay, so don't try to bet it all on winter. Instead, we're going to have a lot more luck in springtime. So that's what we're going to go into now. Spring starts the astrological new year, and that happens on March 19th. It always happens at the very beginning of Aries when the sun moves into 0 degrees Aries. Also have the start of spring because that's the spring equinox. So this is a really big time for things to start in new ways. Aries in the springtime always breathes new life into our life. And so we see a lot of new endeavors, a lot of new people show up. But ultimately, this sense of like, I can do things differently now. I have like that kind of creative freedom. So the first main event of spring is the Libra lunar eclipse. Now, spring is the first eclipse season of the year, and the Libra lunar eclipse is all about bringing more emotional focus, more healing into our relationships. You know, we know Libra is the sign of the people in our lives. It's those really sacred relationships, whether it's marriage, family, people that we're very committed to. And so this is a very, very significant time for relationship healing. Lunar eclipses are always more emotionally evocative. And they usually encourage us to let go of relationships that no longer serve us, or at least to see kind of how they've evolved, how they've grown over time. And so, you know, we're thinking in a really big context here on what are your sacred relationships to that day, and are they going to still carry you forward in ways that you want them to? So a lot of evaluation happening right as spring hits. And then we have Mercury retrograde. We have the first official Mercury retrograde of 2024 starts on April 1st. So there's another kind of moving forward, but then slowing down almost immediately as spring begins. And so sometimes we get that astrologically. Sometimes we're like, oh, we have all this juice, this energy, and then there's a slowdown. And there's always divine timing to why these shifts occur when they do. The universe is a very ancient, omniscient part of our world, right? Kind of knows what's up, literally. So keep that in mind. You know, you may feel like as Aries season begins, you're like, yes, let's go, go, go. But right away, we already have 2 events that are saying, not quite yet. Hold on 1 second. So it could really test our patience and our ability to just kind of wait just a little bit longer until we really catapult ourselves forward. Okay. And astrology is always kind of that. It's always like, are we going forward? Are we going backwards and slowing down? What is that overall kind of like? And springtime overall is still going to be a time where we're going to be making big strides forward. And that can be seen starting with April 8th, solar eclipse in Aries. So this is a solar event, meaning this is a time where you really want to see a new side of yourself. And so you're really exploring whenever there's a solar eclipse. You know, you're exploring a new side of yourself. You're putting yourself in a kind of a new place energetically or even literally. And in Aries, you know, that fiery energy is all about activating something new, kind of lighting a spark internally. And so this can feel like a really exciting event, you know, that kind of really brings that newness out in you. That's the one that we're kind of waiting for to bring us into that springtime mentality. And then after that, we've got a really major conjunction between Jupiter and Uranus. This is the first time that these two planets are going to be meeting up for about 12 years. It takes 12 years for Jupiter to move through the zodiac constellations. And so it's an approximate. So Jupiter meeting up with Uranus in Taurus, as Jupiter closes out its transit through Taurus, the last couple of days in Taurus, it's going to be meeting up with a major planet there. And so this is going to feel like one of those times where if financially you've had a hard time, business-wise you've had a hard time, Taurus is about all those things. This can bring this new sense of expansion and even a really smart way of operating your business, investing your money around this time. And so if you have something that you're wanting to do in a major way, this would be the time to plan for it. It's a great time to launch programs, to do group work. Jupiter is all about bringing people together. And Uranus, of course, has a lot of online connotations since it has to do with social media, which is all about technology, right? So we're thinking very collectively around this event. Of course, we're going to see world events happen anytime two big planets like this meet up, especially if it's been a while. But this is really exciting because I think some of the Taurus cycles that we had an eclipse cycle, we've had Jupiter moving through Taurus, we still have Uranus in Taurus for a few years, can feel really tough because everything feels so real, right? It's an earth sign and it's very much about grounding us in reality. And that's not always exciting when we're feeling like we want to go places, we want to discover the world, we want to discover a new side of ourselves. But Taurus really reminds us of how important our foundation is and that we really can't leave, we can't move on until that is really set up in a good way. And so that's why, we've been going through all that. And in a bigger sense, these Taurus activations have been really helpful because we've been going through so much Pluto activations. And then we went through a Scorpio eclipse cycle too, right? So this is helping us stabilize where we have felt very unstable or chaotic or just like things are just changing in really dramatic ways. These Taurus events have been here to kind of mitigate some of that, to ensure us that like the world's not falling apart. It's just allowing us to create things in a new way. And it is a time for humanity's evolution. Anytime Pluto changes signs, is a time where we've evolved as a collective. And those are rocky times because everyone evolves at their own pace, right? And so we have to kind of keep that in mind. That's the biggest piece to all of this is the Pluto shift. And that's what's going on that is really sparking everything else that's happening inside of these shifts is Pluto's shift from Capricorn to Aquarius. So even an event like Jupiter meeting up with Uranus on the 20th is still happening in the microcosm of the Pluto shift. So keep that in mind too, okay? But I'm very much excited about this shift. I love Jupiter and Uranus energy personally. It's all about the stars, all about astrology, all about really seeing beyond our present circumstances and getting excited for the future and who we want to bring into our circle, who we want to collaborate with, and really just kind of stretching kind of our ambition, our self-discovery. And so this is an event that is going to set one of the major themes in motion for 2024. Uranus is all about friendship, is all about networking, so social networking, all about technology, and all about the future. And so 2024 is going to have very strong Uranian themes. That's happening in one area of the sky, right? But we also see that with Pluto moving into Aquarius, which is happening on another level. And so not only do we have a major Aquarius activation, we have a major Uranus activation for 2024. And so it's really going to feel like things are different. Finally, if you've been anticipating it, really been excited about the future kind of coming to life, 2024 is the year where you really get to see what that looks like. So around April 20th, we're going to get a big look into all that your future holds, which is really, really exciting. May feel strange, at first, take a little while to kind of like settle. And not everybody likes the unknown in the future, but a lot of us do. And I'm sure if you're watching this, you do, because that's what we're talking about here. Now, what we also have following this major conjunction is Mercury stationing to go direct on April 25th. So, the entirety of this Mercury retrograde is, comprising the month of April. So April can feel like this wanting to do a lot, but also needing to get clear on what that is. Where are you going? Because Mercury retrogrades are all about kind of understanding where we've been, where it's gotten us to, all these navigation themes. And so when Mercury moves direct, when it stations to go direct again, which means it's going to move forward on the 25th, we're going to have more answers, more conclusions as to, what this period has been about, and happening right with these eclipses and this major conjunction. I mean, there's going to be a lot of insights that we gather. So this is a very, very important month. April is one of those months that you're definitely gonna pay attention to when it comes to all the different shifts happening. And what are they activating in your life? Because there's a lot of really big astrology happening in the month of April, as well as in May. So let's get into May's astrology. We're still in spring. We have the Pluto retrograde starting on May the 2nd. So this is important because Pluto is the first of the outer line planets to go retrograde. Every year, it's been that way for a few years now. And so Pluto kind of starts this different kind of energy. Now, Pluto, in a sense, is like an interesting planet to go retrograde because where it's at in the zodiac is so significant. So as Pluto stations to go into retrograde on May 2nd, we know that it's going to back up into the very last degree of Capricorn for the last time for 200 plus years. So this is a very important transit to pay attention to. This is the last Pluto retrograde that will occur in Capricorn for 200 plus years to come. So no one alive today will see that shift again, right? And so this has been a very, very important time for us. And 2024 is the last time Pluto will see Capricorn. So that retrograde is one to pay attention to. Usually the Pluto retrogrades are so collective, they're so big that they don't always affect us on a personal level as much. So really pay attention to the news, what's going on there. And we're going to be tapping into more of what this very transformative shift from Pluto in a Capricorn to Pluto and Aquarius has been all about. As well as wrapping up, an 18 plus year period where it moves through Capricorn, and kind of where that really hits you in your life, and kind of bringing some major conclusions to their head. So really important shift there. Another really exciting one that I want to talk about is Jupiter moving into Gemini. I love this. I love these two meeting up. Jupiter loves to go fast and Gemini loves to go fast too. And so Jupiter spends about a year in each of the zodiac signs, approximately, because it has a 12-year cycle. And so we know it's going to spend about a year here in Gemini. I'm not going to go into next year's astrology, but this shift happening almost right in the middle of 2024 is going to feel like things are turning. This is a really major event because Jupiter sets into motion one of the biggest themes for the year. Jupiter is a planet of discovery, travel, but also expansion. And so it's like, what are you learning in really big ways through experience? Via the places that you're going, the people that you're inviting into your life. What are you discovering in 2024? It's going to have a lot of Gemini themes to it. So if you have a major Gemini placement, this is going to feel like a very exciting year for you, my friend. Now, Jupiter moving into Gemini happens not too long after Jupiter is conjunct Uranus. So we have two really big, expansive, energetic events happening about a month apart. And so both of those times are big times for travel, but especially moving into Gemini, we see new themes emerge of connection, conversation. So really it's about talking to new people, kind of finding a new voice, right? So you may feel like you have a lot to say going into the end of spring. Like, you really want to start to connect in big, bold, new ways. We're not just talking about like small day-to-day connections, but we're like, these are long-term connections, right? When a planet like Jupiter is moving through Gemini. So that's going to be a theme that we see throughout the year. We know that in another sense, we have Libra eclipses unfolding, which is also getting us to focus on relationships. And so if 2023 felt very slow, very gradual, almost very internal, like you didn't want to connect that much, 2024 is going to feel a lot louder, a lot busier, a lot more inviting in the sense of wanting to do things with others, wanting to explore things with others. And I think it's really significant too, because Gemini is kind of like Pluto in a sense. We know Scorpio is a ruler of Pluto. So when we're talking about Pluto, we're really talking about Scorpio energy, right? Gemini and Scorpio are very similar. They're all about transitioning, right? Gemini is going from place to place, person to person on a smaller, more mundane level. Scorpio is a bigger, more dramatic level of transition. So like life and death, always seeing it manifest in the home of like, redesigning the home, reconstructing a building, or even your physical body. There's a lot of physical transformation with Scorpio. And so having this Gemini energy in 2024, I think is really going to carry us into this new Aquarian Pluto time as well, and a lot more easier transition, a more excitable transition, because Gemini gets us excited for change, gets us excited to go and try doing things in new ways, but also traveling down new roads, which I think is really going to hit home for 2024 and is one more of the reasons why I'm very excited for this year. Mostly I'm excited for 2024 for that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, but also because Pluto is finally going to find a new home in Aquarius, and we're no longer dealing with this like, it's ending, it's not, it's like this back and forth cusp thing, which has been, a little chaotic, as I'm sure but that's evolution. It's not a comfortable process, and evolution happens with Pluto because it's so final, it's so, intense. And so these are times where we're really working with those sides of ourselves and the parts of our lives that we don't usually look at, we don't get excited about. We usually kind of like to stuff away or tuck away because they're kind of scary. And so when Pluto is moving into a new sign, that gradual process brings up a lot of those things that you've been trying not to deal with, and they're just kind of coming at you. And it's because you can't evolve if you're not really doing the work, you're not really changing internally. And so ultimately that's the bigger medicine for Pluto shifting signs, is this invitation to really explore your pain and your trauma and your suffering, and to just get rid of it. It no longer serves you, right? You need that space for something better. So that is ultimately what we're doing. So we are so excited to get more exciting shifts into the mix that can kind of carry us through that last year of Pluto's transition. So thank you, Jupiter and Gemini. That's all I'll say. And that wraps up springtime. So now we're going to transition into the summer seasons. The summer solstice of 2024 starts on June 20th, when the sun moves into Cancer. Almost said Capricorn there. We are going to talk about Capricorn because Capricorn is the sign this year that is getting 2 full moons and even 2 new moons. But Capricorn's full moons are going to be happening back to back, a month apart during the summer. So June 21st, we have a Capricorn full moon. And then exactly a month later, July 21st, we have our second Capricorn full moon of the year. And this is just kind of how it happens. Usually every year this happens to one zodiac sign. But I don't always know if it also, the same sign gets two new moons as well as two full moons. I always thought it was one or the other. But 2024, we're going to have two Capricorn new moons happening in January and December, and two full moons happening back to back in the summer. So this emphasis on Capricorn is really also going to invite us to see how we're growing in our career life, in our work life. What are those shifts like? And so it may not feel as major as one of these planetary shifts, but this is still an energy that is reaching us more this year. It's happening in more instances. And so we need to take that into consideration. If you want to know all the dates, all the new moons and full moons for 2024, it's a great way to check out my calendar where I have them all listed. And so you can just know intuitively what's coming up each season and really be prepared for all those shifts. So that's one of the most exciting parts about the calendar that I made and that I'm so happy to share with you all. So Chiron retrograde starts on July 24th. Now, you may not think that Chiron is as major of a body, but when it comes to people into astrology, people into spirituality, healers, people like that, which I know that's most of the people that I'm always talking to, you are very much affected by Chiron's retrograde. Not only does it speak to our wound, he's a wounded healer asteroid, and so it brings up something that we do feel very sensitive about anytime it's going retrograde or it's coming out of retrograde, or it's shifting signs, which it does every few years. It's got a 50-year cycle. But this is one of the shifts into retrograde that we have this summer that's going to feel like we're in our fields. Chiron does that. It's been in Aries. And so things are kind of very in our face whenever something is in Aries. And when Chiron is there, that's our wound symbolically in Aries, meaning we have to take action on the things that we feel very sensitive about that, are hurting us or damaging us from living a life that's more fulfilling, right? And so whenever something is in Aries, we have to do something about it. And so it's one of those times where if you can work more on what your wound is and acknowledging kind of what holds you back, what kind of doesn't make you feel great. It's a great thing to tap into around that time. Again, end of July 24th. Now, we also have some other retrogrades happening in the summer. We have Saturn retrograde on June 29th, Neptune retrograde July 2nd. We have another Mercury retrograde happening from August 5th to August 28th. And so I'm noticing a theme here with Mercury retrogrades happening in one calendar month at a time. It's not, in two different months, it's in one. And so it's a lot easier to kind of see when you're working with the calendar months as well. And then we have Uranus retrograde starting on September 1st. And so this is what people are talking about when they say the summer slowdown. This is a phrase I use, and it's really about retrograde season happening in the summer each year now, because we have all these outer lying planets that are slowing down. And you may think that it's pretty early in the year, astrological year, to kind of slow down, right? We just started up in spring, right? We just got things started. But because the way that these planets have been moving in their transits, this is how they're all kind of aligning to the year. If we fast forward 10 years down the road, most of the retrogrades may be happening in fall or in spring, but right now they're all happening in summer. And so, especially July, we really get into the thick of a lot of retrogrades happening. In August feels very much slower. And so during these months where we're having these slowdowns, we're really getting more personal. We're getting more intimate with our lives And whether we really love our lives or, the small parts about our lives that we're getting more clear about, and so these outer lying planets are the collective planets, and that's like really stretching our perspective, seeing beyond our present circumstances. But when those are in retrograde and we're in the summer slowdown of it all, which transitions into fall too, we're thinking much more personally, much more intimately about what's going on in my life. Am I feeling fulfilled? Who am I talking to all the time? What are my daily rituals do for me? Are they really beneficial or not? And so this is a great time to tap into more of that as we kind of turn our focus away from the big picture, and we tap more into where we're spending most of our time, which is on the daily motions and things that we do every day. So that's what's important, And the other thing that I do want to mention, we have an eclipse happening before summer ends, but Pluto retrogrades back into Capricorn on September 2nd. So this is what I was talking about. This is the last time Pluto will be moving through Capricorn for 200 plus years. And so around that time, you're going to feel a little shift unconsciously. Again, Pluto isn't like in your face, like it's who you're talking to, but it is going to feel emotionally a little different because it's moving back into a different area of your life anytime it changes signs. So that's it. And it's going to spend just a little bit of time there in Capricorn to close out some major things. And so just prepare intuitively for the summer slowdown. Just know that there's going to be some invitations to heal and to feel a lot of things in the summer months. Definitely in Leo season, definitely in Virgo season. Okay. And so try not to be so ambitious around those times. Get a little more intimate, be a little more gentle on yourself, because it's really about tuning into kind of what's going on underneath, and we have a lot of support with that cosmically, of course. And then we have yet one more invitation to perhaps heal and to feel in a deep way. Before fall starts on September 17th, we have a lunar eclipse in Pisces. And you may be wondering, why is it in Pisces? I thought it was in Aries and Libra. Well, this happens at the beginning or the end of every eclipse cycle when the north or south node is on the cusp of signs. So around September 17th, the north node will be towards the beginning degrees of Aries. And because of that proximity to the full moon that's happening in Pisces on the 17th, we have a lunar eclipse in Pisces, even though the north node is still technically in Aries for a few more months, right? So that's just kind of how it happens. It sounds confusing, but if you look at the chart, you can understand it a lot more easily. Yes, we are still in a greater cycle of Aries and Libra throughout 2024. But Aries kind of finishes quick. It's a sign that moves really fast. And so it's almost like in its nature, metaphysically, to already be like, okay, I'm done. Like here's the next, passing the torch onto Pisces, which we'll really get into that eclipse cycle into 2025. But the lunar eclipse in Pisces, of course, is going to feel a lot more sensitive, a lot more creative, a lot more imaginative. Pisces is a sign that I usually encourage people to kind of do something different around, kind of get out of your head, right? And so, mid-September, it's an invitation to kind of escape, watch some good films, dive into a new book series, create something that you haven't done before artistically, but really do something different. And lunar eclipse in Pisces, brings out a lot of sensitivity, a lot of fear. This is a very emotionally driven event. And so keep that in mind too. It's kind of hard when we have really emotionally driven events to be around people. And so even though the lunar eclipses are usually more social than the solar eclipses, this can be a harder time to do that. So do keep that in mind. This will be at the very tail end of Virgo season as well. So let's transition into the second half of the year, shall we? So fall starts with the fall equinox, which starts Libra season. I know it's like the second half seasonally, not really the second half of the year. It's already like more 3/4 of the way into the year. September 22nd, the fall equinox begins, the autumnal equinox. We also have Libra season. Libra is a very important shift because it's the descendant of the zodiac, which means we've gone halfway through the zodiac constellations, the signs, to get to Libra, which comes the halfway mark. And so fall really is this transitional moment of like really changing our focus and turning our attention onto our relationships, more onto big picture things, and really getting out of those more personal moments and more intimate moments that we experience in that summertime. Fall is like really kind of showing up in a bigger way, in a more obvious way, publicly. And of course, we have the most social season to kind of lead us into that latter half of the zodiac wheel, right? Libra season also invites us to look at things through a more mature lens of like, being a little more reasonable, a little less maybe passionate, a little more almost logical in a sense, but very more discerning, more mature approach, to that latter half of the wheel, right? You think about it being later in life, later in the zodiac. So we have a kind of an older kind of approach or perspective that we start taking from Libra on through Pisces. And so you may feel like your attention does shift, onto different things come the fall equinox. So starting with fall, we have October 2nd, we have the solar eclipse in Libra. So this is really an exciting time for relationships. The event in spring is really a more sensitive, more about healing relationship wounds, some of the aspects happening for that event. But the solar eclipse in Libra is really about creating a new relationship. It could be one, it could be a few. Like, who are you really trying to call into your life? And so, this is a great time to focus on the look of your life, how you're presenting yourself, if there's any kind of things you're doing different aesthetically, or focusing on your physical appearance, your wardrobe. But this can feel like a more creative time to kind of debut a new side of yourself, very much enhanced by the eclipse energy. That's Libra season every year, but this season will feel a lot bigger, and of course more relationship focused than normal. But I think for this event too, it's really about what's your relationship to yourself and your own appearance, your own reflection, because that's got to be good for the rest to be good, right? So that's something to take into consideration around this time too, that's happening in an area of your life wherever Libra rules. So on the 9th, October 9th, Jupiter goes into retro. So this is one of those really important slowdowns that we have. Before Jupiter goes into retro, it's all about discovery, all about like saying, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to go there, I want to go there. And again, not in small ways, in big ways, since Jupiter's that sign of travel, sign of culture, learning big things. So when Jupiter goes into retro, which it does every year, we do feel like, okay, we've explored a lot of new terrain, a lot of new territory. We've maybe studied a new subject. We've kind of we've established a new circle, a group to learn with. And now the retrograde invites us to start applying what we've soaken up, what we've learned into our life. And so this is kind of where the rubber meets the road of like, okay, you've taken in everything, you've experienced it. Now it's like, okay, it's a part of you. And that's what the retrogrades are great at doing. They actually help us embody the lessons that we've been learning or we've been challenged to learn. definitely feel a shift around that. And then 2 days later, Pluto moves direct, October 11th. So those are happening so close together that they may feel like one event. Okay. Um, and then what do we have on November 15th? Saturn moves direct, and this is really important for your work life. Any big endeavors, any big goals that you have to end the year or to lead you into 2025, because we're not too far away from the end of 2024 by this point. So Saturn invites us to make, new goals, new objectives for our work life, and to even, if you feel called to apply to new places. I wouldn't necessarily encourage that because Jupiter's going to be in retro, but Saturn direct will encourage us to try to do some things a little different in our work sector. But again, if you can plan more for that in like the springtime, that's a really great time to kind of charge ahead. So November 19th, this is the time where Pluto moves into Aquarius. Finally moves into Aquarius for a while. I believe Pluto is going to be in Aquarius until 2044. So we are talking 20 years of a shift, of gradual movement through one sign of the zodiac. No other planet moves this slow. And that's why Pluto's shift feels so intense, feels so life altering, is because it is such a prolonged event. And it is that way for a reason. Again, this is a planet of death, this planet of evolution, a planet of crime, of murder, of like scandal, of like a lot of really scary stuff. And so if it operated at the same rate as these other planets, that would be a really crazy world to live in. So, in some ways it's really nice that Pluto does its thing kind of away from everyone else, and we don't really focus on it very often until it does shift signs. But this is a great time to kind of recap, okay, what was all that about? What have the last few years been about since Pluto started moving into Aquarius? And how can you see yourself evolve over that small amount of time? Because you definitely have. So around 11-19, just know that from here on out it's Aquarius. It's the future, so things are different. Things will continue to be different throughout that cycle. And if you have a major Aquarius placement, know that Pluto is going to be evolving that aspect of your life too. Whether it's in the beginning of Aquarius or at the end of Aquarius, anything in Aquarius is also going to be working with the Pluto energy the second Pluto, is like finally in Aquarius. Okay. I'm not the astrologer that says things have to be aspected to be working together. I'm an intuitive astrologer. And so I know that when something else is in Aquarius's territory, that it's going to be aware of the other presence and that they're going to start knowing each other in some way. But by the time that those two objects actually do make a conjunction and they do perfect that aspect, that will be a much more obvious time where things have been realized, things have been changed for better or worse, right? And in some cases, Pluto is for worse. So Pluto really is kind of the one component of your chart where you're like, there is a lot of fear there because you're just like, what does this mean when the planet of death and transformation comes and hits this area of my life? It's one thing if it's like hitting my career, but it's another thing if it's in like my home sector. Like that could be a really dramatic kind of energy to deal with. And so it is really important to understand where that's at. And if you want to understand more of that Pluto shift in your own life, please look at my offerings and we can get clear about that together. So moving through fall, we have a Mercury retrograde starting on 11/25, November 25th, happens right around Thanksgiving. So things are going to kind of slow down a little earlier this year, speaking as 2024, because 2023, we have a really late Mercury retrograde. So Mercury retrograde 11/25 to 12/6, and I'm sorry, to 12/15. So right before Christmas hits, Mercury is going to be direct again, which can feel like things are moving forward again. And not only that, but on 12/15, we have a new moon in Gemini. And so things get very busy for the holiday season in 2024. And so that's really cool too, because by that time, Pluto will have settled into Aquarius terrain. And so we can kind of pull our attention away from that and really feel like we're going places even as the year kind of ends, which is really fascinating because that's not how it's been recently. Not only that, we have a rare shift in the month of December, Mars retrograde. So Mars, if you didn't already know, only goes retrograde once every 26 months. So that's more than 2 years' time that it takes for that planet to slow down in any fashion. And, that retrograde is prolonged for, 5 months. I felt like it was like 6 months, like it was a really long time when it happened in 2022. That was a very significant retrograde in my life. I don't know about you guys, but it's because it doesn't happen every year that it does have a more imperative effect to it. I was going to say dramatic, but Mars is a planet of action, the planet of assertion. And it's also a planet of energy. It's a lot like the sun. Mars holds a lot of that energy to just do things, right? To get things moving. So when Mars goes retrograde, we feel like less motivated, less active, less energized. And that happens before Mercury goes direct, and so keep that in mind as we kind of end the year in a strange way with that Mars retrograde in December. We are being invited to really understand what actions we've been taking. And have they been helping us? Have they been holding us back? Where have we been channeling that energy? Because it's really important to understand, what are you doing with your time? What are you doing with that fire? And so Mars retrograde really helps us get clear on, has it all been going to our work life? Has it all been going into our creative pursuits? Has it all been going into our home life? Where has that been manifesting? And do we need to kind of call back our power a bit through that retrograde once we get a more perspective on how have our actions actually been benefiting us, or has it kind of been wasting our fuel, right? So that can be a very perceptive retrograde to understand, is your capacity to just jump right in and be impulsive and just to kind of act in the moment helping you, or is it hindering you? Definitely will hinder you more during the retrograde, but overall, what does that look like? And where have you kind of been consistently just kind of doing things and not really getting the results that you desire? So that's an important one that'll carry into 2025 for a few months. And then we end 2024 with a few shifts. So we have Capricorn season, the winter solstice starts the very end of the year on December 21st. So right before Christmas, we transition into Capricorn and we kind of get those rewards of Christmas or the holidays, whatever it is that you celebrate. It's that time where we have material things that we've been wanting, that we've been hoping for, very Capricorn, right? And then we have Chiron going direct on the 29th. And so bringing up that wound right as the new year kind of unfolds in a sense, and maybe inviting us to kind of create new wounds, maybe to kind of turn our attention away from the old ones, right? Chiron moving forward is like making new mistakes, trying new things, especially in the realm of teaching, in the realm of healing. And so that kind of transition from 2024 to 2025 with Chiron there could feel like a real invitation to kind of help yourself or to heal yourself in a sense. So great time to work with a practitioner, work with someone that can kind of coach you or teach you something different. As well as we have a Capricorn New Moon on the 30th. So at the very, very end of 2024, the Capricorn New Moon is like, hey, new commitments have been made, as they often are as we start a new year, but they're happening, right before the new year hits. And so again, these multiple Capricorn new moons and full moons this year is saying something bigger about 2024 as a whole, which is it is going to be a year where we are going to test our ambition a lot more. We are going to see what we can achieve academically, financially, career-wise. A lot of knowledge is going to be ascertained this year. And so we're really going to know a lot more than we've either felt like we've known or we haven't even tried to get to know in years prior. So I think that's a great place to end it. This is the forecast for 2024. Again, I have a product that helps you stay in tune with all the shifts, all the major shifts as we move through these months. Check out my calendar at the link below. And thank you for tuning in. I'm so grateful that you were here, that you found this, and hopefully it gives you some inspiration, some motivation to look forward to these shifts and to kind of start intuitively planning for the year ahead, which is something that I love doing with astrology, and I hope you do as well. My name is Tyler Brass. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and thank you for watching.